Authorized Gerard, Sunday School Director for New Spirit Baptist Church here in Dallas, Texas, where the Reverend Otis Grimes is pastor. And I have to say, I literally just drove in from Houston, and I'm a bit fatigued. So forgive me if I make a few mistakes in this lesson. Nevertheless, our lesson for today, September the 10th, in the year of our Lord 2023, is Jesus Silences Critics. And the reference scriptures for this lesson are taken from the book of Luke, the 14th chapter, and the 1st through the 6th verses. This is lesson 2 in our lesson series, God's Law is Love, and it's lesson 2 in unit 1 of this lesson series, Love Completes, Law Falls Short. Unit 1, Love Completes, Law Falls Short. As in last week's lesson, Jesus again has accepted an invitation from a Pharisee. And this invitation was to have a meal. Also, as in last week's lesson, the Pharisee and some other Pharisees who were guests were trying to find some fault in Jesus' teaching or behavior that contradicted the law of Moses. They were always trying to find fault in Jesus. Now, reading the scriptures from the New International Version of the Bible, Luke the 14th chapter and the 1st through the 6th verse is as follows. One Sabbath, when Jesus went to eat in the house of a prominent Pharisee, he was being carefully watched. There in front of him was a man suffering from abnormal swelling of his body. Jesus asked the Pharisee and experts in the law, "Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath or not?" But they remained silent. So taking hold of the man, he healed him and sent him on his way. Then he asked them, "If one of you has a child or an ox that falls into a well on the Sabbath day, will you not immediately pull it out?" And they said, and they had nothing to say. May the Lord add a blessing to the reading, the hearing, and the understanding of his holy word. The set-in for this lesson is at a meal in the home of a Pharisee on the Jewish Sabbath. And remember, the Jewish Sabbath is on Saturday. Now, we can determine several things from the first verse of our written text. One, the Pharisee was a prominent Pharisee, meaning that he was well respected and probably wealthy. Two, since the meal was on the Sabbath, it was prepared before the Sabbath because the Jews did no work on the Sabbath. And three, Jesus was being carefully watched, which suggests that this occasion was not a pleasant one, but rather an uncomfortable one. In verse 2, we see that there was a man suffering from abnormal swelling of his body. The King James Version calls it dropsy. Now let's take a closer look at this. It's not likely that this man was invited because he was not a Pharisee or an expert in the law of Moses or a popular rabbi. And it's not likely that he came to be in front of Jesus by some random positioning by the Pharisees. In other words, this man was more than likely sit there before Jesus to see if Jesus would heal him on the Sabbath. More than likely, he was positioned in front of Jesus in the hope by the Pharisees that Jesus would heal him on the Sabbath. This would violate the Pharisees' strict interpretation of the law of Moses, that no work be done on the Sabbath. And that would give them cause to accuse Jesus of breaking the law. Before he healed the man of abnormal swelling or dropsy, as it says in the King James Version, he asked the Pharisees and experts in the law of Moses a question. And the question was, is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath or not? The fourth commandment says, remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. Exodus, the 20th chapter and the 8th verse. Then in the 9th and 10th verses, we see that the commandment is further clarified to prohibit work on the Sabbath by God's old covenant people or anyone in their households. So to be perfectly honest, the law seems clear: no work on the Sabbath. Jesus, however, said that the Sabbath was made for man and not man for the Sabbath. Mark, the 2nd chapter and the 27th verse. Jesus wanted the Jews and ultimately Christians to know that the needs of the people should be met even on the Sabbath, especially if there's a need for mercy. One of the older women in one of the churches I was a member at, Mother Colton, used to always say, we pass mission on the way to mission. In other words, we're so in a hurry to get to a church service that if we see somebody on the side of the road needing help, maybe with a flat tire or an elderly woman or whatever, we don't stop to help them because we're on our way to church. And I never forgot that. When the Pharisees heard Jesus' question, they didn't answer. It would have been hard to say, no, it is not lawful to heal on the Sabbath. If they had said, yes, it is lawful to heal on the Sabbath, they would not be able to accuse Jesus of breaking the law if he had healed the sick man. So they didn't say anything. And that reminds me of what our parents used to always tell us, older generation: if you don't have anything good to say, then don't say anything at all. But in this case, if you don't, as far as these Pharisees are concerned, if you don't have anything bad to say, then don't say anything at all. So Jesus took the man by the hand and healed him and sent him on his way. After that, Jesus asked them another question. If one of them had a child or an ox that fell in a well on the Sabbath, wouldn't they immediately pull the child or the ox out? Now, Jesus knew the only answer that they could give to that was yes. They would pull their ox out or their child out. But then again, that would mean that they wouldn't have anything to accuse Jesus of about what he did on the Sabbath by healing the man. So again, they just kept quiet because they didn't have anything bad that they could say about Jesus. This lesson teaches us that good will always conquer evil. Love will conquer hate. Even in this day and age, there are those who will try to set others up to fail or take a fall. Police have planted evidence to make someone look guilty. And some people will try to convince others to try to do something that's impossible to do, just so they could fail. They will, however, when these traps and schemes are exposed, the evildoers will be silenced. The Pharisees were critical of Jesus, and they sought to discredit him with their trumped up interpretations of the law. But Jesus stopped their criticism. He stopped it both before they could have even done it. So our lesson, Jesus silences critics. I hope you've gained at least one thought from this lesson. May God bless you, and may he ever keep you.